Hi, I'm James Karen. Perhaps you've seen me battling invaders from outer space in Frankenstein Meets the Space Monster, or selling some ghostly real estate in Poltergeist. Either way, I'm no stranger to the world of exploitation films, and I'm happy to be here as your guide through drive-in madness. Get ready, you're about to be cast into a world of zombies, murderers, sexy women, blood-soaked creatures, and monsters from hell. You're about to see the wildest selection of coming attraction previews chosen from the best of those Passion Pit classics. Plus, we'll be visiting with a few of the people who have brought you such drive-in goodies as Horror of the Blood Monsters, Mausoleum, Dracula vs. Frankenstein, and Shudder, Night of the Living Dead. Linnea Quigley, Russell Streiner and John Russo, Samuel M. Sherman, Bobby Brisee, Forrest J. Ackerman. Plus,
Hello.
Hi.
George Romero.
Oh, hi, Tom Savini.
Nice to meet you.
Same here. I've heard a lot about you.
okay, the popcorn is tucked between your legs, that tinny-sounding speaker is hanging from your window, and your hottest girlfriend, with whom you've yet to score, is nibbling on a milk dud. The previews of coming attractions flash on the huge screen.
Now, for those who have seen The Exorcist, Carrie, and Ruby, here is new unspeakable horror in Nurse Sherry. From a doomed medical operation to the return of an evil human soul driven to evil in a strange and gruesome story from the other side of life.
You know absolutely nothing about what you're dealing with.
Don't be afraid. Take my hand. Come with me, Sherry, and I'll introduce you to the bliss that lies beyond the borders of hell.
Living, breathing terror chills your flowing blood and shocks your nervous system.
If we were in the 17th century, I'd be inclined to diagnose her symptoms as a classical case of possession.
It's more bizarre, more terrifying than your most frightening fears. Nurse Sherry. Don't miss Nurse Sherry for an evening of pleasure and terror. Nurse Sherry in color, rated R for adults.
Girls for Rent, a story as bold as the headlines flashing across our country today, telling of girls available for any purpose to those who have the rental fee. It all starts with a prison camp bust-out from a hellhole where women are treated like dirt. Everybody's heard about Linda Lovelace, Marilyn Chambers, and Georgina Spelman, the screen's erotic queens. And now you can see Georgina Spelman, star of The Devil and Miss Jones, at a theater near you in Girls for Rent. What you see on the screen in Girls for Rent is actually happening in the United States today. This motion picture smashes open the dirty world of politicians, party girls, massage, and murder. It was too hot to tell before, but now the lid is off. Looking for some action? The organization's gals have got it in Girls for Rent. Hot-blooded, hot-lipped, and hot-rodding down the highways. These girls can handle any man and any set of roaring wheels. Get ready for something new. Girls for Rent. They'll tire you out and tear you apart in a bedroom or in a brawl. They're hot, wild, and for hire. Girls for Rent. of blood-drenched, chill-crammed terror, see the Bloodorama Shock Festival, if you're not afraid of being scared out of your wits. Join Christopher Lee, Greta Tyson, Kent Taylor, and John Ashley as they enter the demon's domain in search of new, hideous horrors. It's all there and in bloodletting, gory color. The legions of evil want to rise from their graves and greet you. Don't be afraid. See the Bloodorama Shock Festival, if you dare. You'll see men turn into maniacs, women turn into witches, and dead beings turn into living, breathing, unholy beasts that kill at the command of a half-mad fiend.
Now, here's a young talent I remember quite well. Linnea Quigley and I appeared together in Return of the Living Dead. And if ever there was a more deserving soul for the Best Nude Zombie of the Year award, Linnea would surely win it. She began her acting career with low-budget entries like Summer Camp, Don't Go Near the Park, Fairy Tales, and the notorious Silent Night, Deadly Night. Linnea shares with us some of her most memorable exploitation performances.
I remember going to the drive-in as a kid, and that was like the best time. I went every weekend, and this is in Grinnell, Iowa. And it was so much fun. We used to sit there and watch all these like really, to us, great movies. And it was the best time that I ever had. It was a lot of fun. I remember doing my first movie when I was 18, and it was Fairy Tales. And I remember them checking my ID. They didn't believe I was old enough because I had one of those baby faces, I mean a real baby face, and not knowing a thing what I was doing or how to act or anything. And it was a good experience, though. The next movie that I did was Summer Camp, and so I wasn't really used to the business. I was a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera, and I remember they put us up in Malibu, and we all slept, the guys and the girls, in these bunk houses. They had bunk beds and everything, and, you know, worked us. 2 people, I think, had concussions during one of the scenes and had to be rushed to the hospital. And about 2 weeks after we got done with the film, the whole place, the Malibu Canyon, burnt up, so we couldn't do any more on the film. But that was a good experience because I, learned to rough it.
From the makers of Reanimator, from beyond. Every journey begins in the mind. A flight of imagination. A vision of what might lie across the universe. Or within the deepest regions of the subconscious. Dr. Edward Pretorius is about to embark on such a journey.
It's out of control. You've got to turn it off.
Something's
Coming.
Humans are such easy prey.
flesh crawl and tingle as creeping creatures slither out of the night to satisfy their unholy cravings. Don't come to see horror of the blood monsters alone. Bring a friend, bring a fiend, bring your nerve. You'll see human beings hideously transformed into the most grotesque creations we ever dare to show you on screen. Gruesome mutations called the vampires. Horror of the blood monsters in weird color. Rated GT.
In 1968, I made a picture that starred one of today's biggest box office names. The movie was called Hercules in New York, and I played opposite a fella they billed as Arnold Strong. Incidentally, our other co-star was Arnold Stang. Well, Arnold Strong went on to become Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the rest is Hollywood history. Right around the same time, there was a group of filmmakers toiling away in Pittsburgh, and they were shooting their first feature film. They titled this maiden effort Night of the Flesh Eaters. Soon afterwards, the picture was retitled Night of the Living Dead and sent on its merry way to theaters and drive-ins across America. It wasn't their intention at the time, but their little movie became an enormous success story, so rare in the exploitation industry. Directed by George Romero, Night of the Living Dead was scripted by John Russo. Mr. Russo has since written several horror novels and screenplays and continues to produce and direct films. Russell Streiner, who portrayed the role of Johnny and coined the famous line, "They're coming to get you, Barbara," acted as producer on the film. He has since directed and produced movies for the drive-in market like The Booby Hatch and The Devil and Sam Silverstein. Let's take a look at the original preview from Night of the Living Dead.
To a night of total terror. Night of the living dead, the dead who live on living flesh. The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures. Night of the living dead. A bizarre adventure in fear. An experience in shock more shattering than your strangest nightmare. Night of the living dead. A night with the dead who cannot die. A night of total terror. Night. Of the living dead.
Russell Streiner and John Russo.
Back in the very early days, I mean, it was brutal. I mean, I don't recall exactly, but I think Leighton Image started on something like $600, if I'm not mistaken.
Richard Ritchie loaned you the money.
Mm-hmm.
George thought you wouldn't go along with the idea of making some kind of feature film, and he and I were coming back from lunch with Richard Ritchie, and while we were there, we're eating grilled provolone sandwiches and drinking beer and getting about half loaded probably, and complaining about nobody, all the agencies that we had done jobs for that won awards and had won awards, and we'd done them on low budgets. Then when they get big budgets, they go to New York to get that work done. So I said, well, you know, we have a 35mm camera now. Why don't we each get 10 guys and kick in maybe $600 each, and we'd have $6,000. Could we make any kind of feature film on that? Well, it sounds ridiculous, but for $6,000 at that time, if you shot black and white and edited a black and white 16 work print, you could do something.
$1967.
Yeah. George smacked the table and he said, we're going to make a movie. Richard thought we were nuts. And then George said, Russ will never go along with it. And I said, no, Russ will go along with it. And we come back and told you the idea. Well, you did get excited, so did Gary. And you started.
Well, it was my role to be sort of the responsible business person while you creative types went and dreamt up. But it did make sense, and obviously a lot of other people thought so.
But you said, oh, we'll never do it on 6. You put some figures together and said, we have to have 12.
Right.
And well, George said, oh no, where are we going to get 12?
That's where the high-rolling producer part of me kicks in. But, well, just getting the whole effort off of the ground. I mean, if you can recall, I mean, it was the first time any of us had done that, as close as we had come to a longer form movie, with the exception of George, was industrial films and that kind of thing, and that all went very very well. But just the whole notion of trying to put together a feature film on that kind of budget, you know, where can you sell it? Well, between the bad package of black and white films that seemed to be around on television and what was making the drive-in circuit in those days, you have to take a calculated shot and say, if we can't do something that's better than that, maybe we should stick to television commercials.
Yeah, we were talking about even whatever we could get done, we thought we could make something better than those films with monsters and rubber masks, and even if we had to peddle it to one drive-in after another locally, we'd get our $12,000 back.
Warner Brothers present 2 gripping dramas of science, horror, and suspense. The Human Duplicators and Mutiny in Outer Space. In The Human Duplicators, you'll tremble in horror as this android scientist creates electronic brains and with his monster machine duplicates live human bodies. You'll freeze with fear as you enter the cold world of the living dead, where terror dwells and horror waits for you. In Mutiny in Outer Space, the space-age drama from tomorrow's headlines. The suspense, the drama, the terror of human beings facing a fiendish monster from the moon. Too incredible to believe, too gigantic to control, too mysterious for man to comprehend. See Mutiny in Outer Space and The Human Duplicators in bleeding color.
Pardon me, I'm going to the concession and get some French fries. I'll be right back.
Once upon a time when the world was filled with wonder, little creatures shared the earth with humans. And magic was a way of life. Once upon a time is now. Harry Jr. is about to be drawn into a world beyond his wildest fantasy, and he'll need a little magic of his own to get out of it alive. Jr. expected to have a little trouble getting adjusted in his new neighborhood. But he never expected anything like this. Troll, where myths and legends come to life.
Look what happens when 3 cool big city chicks set the West on fire. Blazing Stewardesses.
We missed you over at the Beehive, stranger. And I extended a personal invitation, too.
So it has to be stiff. Come back. That's it, you see? That's it. And this song has to be stiff.
Stop screaming! Let's go! Let's go get her!
When you're all alone, visions of terror run wild. Only tonight, they will be real. Because all the legends of darkness are coming out of the closet. In Dead Time Stories.
Afternoon, boys!
An insanely wicked nightmare, haunted by bizarre creatures carving their way through a maniacal fable, oozing with evil magic and psycho killers.
You're expecting perhaps Janet Lee?
Loves me. Loves me not.
Oh, you now care!
She loves me!
From the door to your most secret fears, through the terror of a deadly forest, all the way to Grandma's house. Horror is back in style.
I'm gonna make this very painful.
Now, it's time to say your prayers. When darkness comes, it will be too late, because all your nightmares come to life. In Dead Time Stories.
It isn't often that the drive-in tailored movie acts as a vehicle for instant notoriety. But when Mausoleum became a cult favorite among horror genre fans, its attractive star, Bobby Boucher, followed suit. She was immediately crowned as the new Scream Queen of Horror and won the hearts of audiences worldwide. Her successful string of exploitation appearances include Ghoulies, Prison Ship, and Deadly Sting. Bobby's dynamic personality and natural appeal are sharp contrast to her horrific screen roles.
Well, I tell you, drive-in theaters were something else. Do you know that we started out with quite a few drive-in theaters in the United States, and they are less and less now. And it's too bad, because where else could you have taken your best date? I mean, where did you have your first kiss? The kids today don't even know this. They rent videotapes, and they go, what, in their back room? I mean, who knows? But in the car, you could get away from the house. You could get away from mom and dad. You could lock the door. You could watch the people next to you. It was great. You rarely saw the picture. I think that's why they were so bad. I mean, most pictures, as you think, were B pictures that were shown in the drive-in. And they're making a lot more B pictures now, which is surprising that drive-ins are going out. But I think video has taken over. Late night TV and video. So we got a problem here where there's no place to go. Well, that's probably why the kids are out on the streets. I mean, we got a problem here. I say we bring back the drive-ins. Clear up the drug problem, hey? Oh, and the food at the drive-in. I mean, please, Milk Duds. Hot dogs and hamburgers, they were cold when you got them back to the car, right? I don't know. I say you bring your own thermos and you bring your own chicken and put the food at the drive-in. But it was okay. I mean, what were you going to do during intermission, right? You already did what you were supposed to do before the intermission because you had to have a break. So everybody went to intermission and had some popcorn and stuff. My first movie role was Mausoleum, and it was a fluke that I got this, really. Everybody auditioned for this part, but I think the only way I really got it was I did the best growl. Everybody could have done this. But I had a real good growl. A little sample here. Nobody could have done that, right? Anyway, let's see. Mausoleum. Well, after I got that, and that made quite a bit of, we got a nice European distribution. It did very well in the States. It hit the 50 top grossing list. I got a little bit of a following in horror. So at that point, what was next? The Kid. We did Ghoulies.
They have very bad manners. And they have no respect for privacy. They'll wake up the neighbors.
What the hell's in there?
And they never take no for an answer.
Man, that chick is really a screamer.
Ghoulies, once they show up, you can never get rid of them.
And the Wasp. Lots of prosthetics on the face, the same as Mausoleum. We have pumpkin cheeks, we have teeth inserts, we have scleral lenses, we have,
actually the mask was made from the Mausoleum bust that was made a few years ago. And you'll notice a similarity from the Mausoleum monster and the Wasp monster. That's because it was made from the same mold. In this case, though, however, teeth were brought out and added on, you can see. And in this instance, the glue is being applied to the nose area. The mask is on. It's been glued onto the face. Now, the only thing now here is the eye area has not been retouched. So from this point on, Tom will build up the eye area to blend in with the mask. The wig is applied. That's to cover the top of the mask on both sides. This is like the third killing. This is John Terrence. He's my love interest in this film. And this is his death scene. And he swallowed like a gallon of blood, and the wasp has pierced him from the other side. And this is he's a terribly exciting Shakespearean actor, and he actually did this as a favor.
A name that is synonymous with successful drive-in movie making is Samuel M. Sherman. Mr. Sherman has been responsible for the distribution of over 200 different movies throughout the world. He is a specialist in supplying the drive-in circuit with promotable film fare. His production and distribution company, Independent International Pictures, grew out of the demanding drive-in playdate schedules of the 70s. Today, the firm is branching out to the new drive-in, home video, having produced such exploitation classics as Dracula vs. Frankenstein and The Naughty Stewardesses. Mr. Sherman is a living textbook of how drive-in movies are made and marketed.
Well, it's a funny thing how I got involved with Al Adamson and started at Independent International. It all began by being a fan of old movies and having seen a movie called The Old Oregon Trail, which was a silent covered wagon movie done by Al's father, who was known as Denver Dixon, in 1928, and Al's mother was the leading lady. When I went to Los Angeles for the first time in 1962, I eventually met Al's dad, and through meeting him and his wife, I met Al, who was running a nightclub out in the valley at the time. And Al and Denver had made one film, and Al wanted to go further and this time learn how to direct and continue to make pictures. And so I got involved with these people. It's 1962, came back to New York and ended up representing Al's dad in foreign sales and in trying to put new projects together. And we played around with that from 1962 until 1968, when Al and I started Independent International with the addition of a third partner, Dan Kennis. And Danny's background was as a theater owner and television distributor. Now, at the time we were planning to start Independent International, it was beginning the company with films that Al was already making.
And one of those films turned out to be Blood of Ghastly Horror.
Voodoo witchcraft transforms beautiful women into 1,000-year-old mummies.
Joe Corey died, and a psychotic killer was born.
I can't believe it.
It's true. Joe's last days were spent as a hunted mad animal.
See a doctor invent a weird artificial brain component and create an inhuman fiend who commits acts of shocking and brutal horror. It's a frightening and fantastic visit with those who will not die, and they want your company now. He must possess the living to stay alive. You'll see scenes of cruel and unwholesome beings grotesquely lusting for vengeance as they rip and slash their way out of the grave. The zombies rise from their deathless sleep and stalk the city's dark streets for those lonely souls who will become their next tormented victims. To them, life is a nightmare of fresh corpses and dungeons of terror. Be the dead arise to thirst for the life-giving fluid they must have to keep their rotted bodies alive. Blood of Ghastly Horror. In color, rated PG.
Now, at the same time, we also planned to make a film and didn't know what it was or what it would be, and the film turned out to be Satan's Sadist with Russ Tamblyn, which was at the height of the motorcycle trend at that time, what AIP was making. We opened it in Birmingham, Alabama, and had Regina Carroll as the guest star, and we traveled to all the different drive-in theaters and met the people and had her on radio and television, and did quite a job presenting the picture and promoting it as an A movie would have been presented. And people in town like Birmingham, not getting too many publicity tours from major companies, appreciated our coming there and gave us a big welcome, and it opened the picture. The picture was extremely successful.
Is it better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all? To pay the price at any cost for a moment of pleasure.
Torn out of today's headlines, a shocking, realistic story of the wave of revolution and anarchy sweeping our country today. Sinning, slugging, and drugging their way to hell. Satan's Sadists are not a pack of imitation angels. They're modern rebels, warped by the generation gap and turned on to everything by the torrid tempo of the strange age we're living in. Satan sadists are helling it like it is, baby, and smashing and slashing at anyone in their way. Dig the wild music from Satan Sadists on Pendulum Records. It'll blast your mind.
Dracula vs. Frankenstein was a follow-up film to Satan Sadists, and it was started at the beginning of 1969 under the original title to be called Blood Freaks, but to be produced under the title The Blood Seekers. There was a part for a dwarf who was an assistant to the doctor, and I said to Al, I'd like to have Angelo Rosito, who used to work in all those Bela Lugosi horror movies. And Al said, I don't know where he is. I don't know how I would get him. So I said, well, he used to have a newsstand. Somebody told me around Hollywood Boulevard, why don't you go down there and look? So he went. He went up and down Hollywood Boulevard, and he says, there's nobody here who's a dwarf who's got a newsstand. He said, my agent I'm working with for the picture, Jerry Rosen, has got an actor who's a dwarf, and we're going with his man. He says, I can't keep looking for your guy. It turned out his man was Angelo Rosito, so he got him anyway.
They live by night. They hide in the dark and rise from the shadows. They can never feel the warmth of living human blood in their veins. Their bodies are cold and dead. Dracula versus Frankenstein. Who serves the dead. A dead man who controls the doctor and the living creature horribly created from the mangled corpses of their victims. Dracula versus Frankenstein. His blood is cold, but his mind is keen. He cannot die, for he is already dead. His name is Dracula. Another lives, but his body belongs to the dead. The two will join forces, but only one will survive. Dracula versus Frankenstein. Oakmoor Cemetery is a cold, lifeless place to visit at night. Unless you're already dead, and your name is Dracula. Together, in one film, they meet in a fight of fright. The kings of horror battle to the death. Dracula versus Frankenstein.
It's funny, I have the actual Frankenstein head that Tony Tierney made right here, and this is our buddy Frankie. And we've been through a lot together. And you can see we both look a little more worn than we once did, but this was the head that Tony Tierney made. He sculpted it out of clay, and then he had latex. He put it over this thing, and he got a latex mask, and he put it on the head of John Bloom. So there's 7'4" John Bloom wearing this thing.
Macabre, the macabre mystery world we never see. The strange, the hideous, the shocking. Like these people who twist and distort the limbs of their children to make them outstanding acrobats or crippled beggars. Macabre. These men disguise themselves as women and work as geishas to earn a living. While in this part of the world, men chase turtles and eat them raw, believing them to be the most powerful of aphrodisiacs. Macabre. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and women do whatever is necessary according to their customs to be beautiful. Macabre. For thrill chasers,
There's the dangerous pastime of sidecar racing. Macabro. It's the world of strange desires. Every thrilling danger you can imagine. Macabro, in color.
After the next feature begins, the refreshment stand will continue to serve you. It will remain open, so there's still time to add to the fun of enjoying the movie.
In the past 50 years, no one has done more for the perpetuation of horror, science fiction, and fantasy than a good friend of mine, Forry Ackerman. For nearly a quarter century, he edited the premier magazine of Film Fright, Famous Monsters of Filmland. Forry's widespread involvement in every arena of the horror and science fiction field has made him a favorite among filmmakers for memorable cameo roles. From the deepest depths of his renowned Acker Mansion, a veritable museum of genre film history, Forry welcomes us with his esteemed words of wisdom.
Greetings from Horrorwood, California. This is the Acker Monster himself in person, live. I think there's a mask up there of myself when I definitely was alive. And I'm speaking to you from the depths of the Acker Mansion, actually from Grizzly Land. You know, when I was a teenager going to drive-in theaters, I had my own definition of them. To me, a drive-in theater was an outdoor theater with wall-to-wall car petting. I appeared in an exploitation film. It was Sam Sherman's, it was Dracula versus Frankenstein, and there were some strange situations surrounding that. Actually, I was going around with my arm in a sling, a terrible amount of pain, having to drive with one hand, and I got a call from Sam and he said, "How'd you like to be in my picture and be mutilated, be killed by the Frankenstein monster?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't think so. I believe I'll set this one out. Enough pain already. I'm not about to go waltzing around with a monster and get mangled." No, he said, no, something new has been added. Our monster has been bitten by Dracula, and he too has become a vampire, so he will just fang you to death. So I thought, well, for a few bucks and some fun and watch myself in a drive-in theater, oh, okay, I'll go for it. Well, I got on the set about 11 o'clock in the morning, and at 11 o'clock at night I was still waiting to be killed or to be fanged by the monster. What happened was that being an inexpensive film, they couldn't hire somebody of the quality of a Jack Pierce, say, so they had a chap that was his first professional role. He'd just been an amateur makeup artist prior to that, and as fast as he would put the goop on the monster's face, it would fall off, and this went on for about 12 hours. Just couldn't, even with epoxy resin, get that to stick in. So it was getting desperation time. Dracula himself had to be on the Red Eye Express and off to New York at 1 o'clock in the morning to appear in a play the next day on Broadway. So finally, Sam, in desperation, he said, well, let's, even if the goop falls off the monster's face right before the very camera, we have to go with this shot. So they made him all up and said, okay, in with the fangs. Well, there was so much goop around the monster's face, there was no room for the fangs. So they quickly, as often happens in these exploitation films, they rewrote the scene. They said, well, he'll just have to crush Ackerman to death. oh, that's exactly what I wanted to avoid with this painful arm and the shoulder out of whack.
Who are you?
Keep driving, I will tell you where.
Who are you?
I am known as the Count of Darkness, the Lord of the Manor of Carpathia. Turn here. Get out of the car, Dr. Beaumont.
I was determined to win an Academy Award for a death scene. There I was, lying stone cold dead in the market and waiting for the director to call cut. So I was holding my breath and holding my breath, and I knew it was in Technicolor, and I thought, my God, I must be purple by now. I must be polka dot. What is happening? Well, what was happening was the director was satisfied with the scene, but he just walked away and forgot to call cut. So I was lying there in mortal agony, holding my breath and thinking, I'm really going to die here before the camera. Finally, I heard my wife whisper and said, what's the matter with my husband? Why doesn't he get up? Well, somebody came over, tapped me on the shoulder. Mr. Ackerman, you okay? And I go, yeah, okay.
Frightening, fear-filling, fiendish, and fantastic horror is here. Curse is unleashed as the hideous wolf monster is brought to life. From out of the crypts of undead beings comes a maniacal, blood-mad demon seeking new living victims. A new grotesque chiller with new frightening fiends to shock you speechless. You'll meet the vampire doctor, master of unholy witchcraft, the ghoul woman, a female demon whose kiss means doom, and the fantastic flesh-mad wolf monster. Don't miss Frankenstein's bloody terror. It's a super shock spectacle of hideous horror in Chillerama 70 and gory color. Rated GP.
God, did anyone really pay to see that?
Screaming demons screeching through the skies. Weird winged wonders. Hideous horned horrors. Fiendish fanged phenomenon out of the shadows onto your throat. The Twilight People.
Boy, the one movie that really caused a stir was Silent Night, Deadly Night, and that really was so surprising because I'd gone to the screening of it, and when I was doing it, I thought, you know, how stupid is Santa Claus Killer? It's another horror movie. And I was in Mexico filming another film at the time, and my manager would call me and say, you know, oh my God, it's on the news again, you know, they're banning it, and in Chicago they're up in arms and everything, and, you know, I thought, you know, how stupid, I can't believe this. But that movie, you know, it was just another horror movie to me, and people just went nuts because it was a Santa Claus killer, and to me, I thought it was just funny. But that movie was hard to work on because I was impaled on antlers, and I wouldn't suggest it to anyone. It's not a good way to die.
Something that still is with me to this day, the line about if I had $1, literally, if I had $1 every time someone said to me or asked me to say to them, they're coming to get you, Barbara, I would, I wouldn't even be doing this interview. I would be in Palm Springs someplace with my feet up around the swimming pool.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
See a quiet ride in the country turn into a nightmare of horror. Get ready for a meal you will never forget. Break bread with the living dead. Feel your flesh pull away when they scream for food. See, don't open the window. Whatever's out there will wait. Rated R.
How long has it been since you've held a pretty young girl in your arms?
The naughty stewardesses would like to take care of your problem.
Well, see, life to me is just one big orgasm. Getting stronger and stronger. I guess that's why I meet so many men. Do you swing both ways?
She was only kidding, weren't you?
Look, you were bare-assed at my place. That says a lot, okay?
That doesn't say a damn thing. And I don't know what's in your head, but man, you come on in a strange way. And I think there's something wrong with you.
One likes them older and experienced. Another prefers the younger, more virile approach. While some girls just like men and men and men. The naughty stewardesses. The naughty stewardesses. They're sweet, but know the score. The lovingest group of oversexed and undersatisfied females who ever graced any runway. Jane does it for kicks. Debbie does it for love. Margie does it for money. And Barbara does it for fun. They're the naughty stewardesses, and they're flying your way now. Fly first class with the naughty stewardesses, the cutest, curviest, most caressable hostesses who will ever take care of you. The naughty stewardesses, your hostesses on the wildest flights you'll ever take. They're good little girls who want to be bad, and they try harder. The naughty stewardesses are what you think they are, and more. Each one is a piece of class. They're special, when only the finest will do. Come and meet the naughty stewardesses.
Wait. Johnny, we have to stop. George Romero and Tom Savini are next.
Next?
Mm-hmm.
What, do you got all your dates on some kind of a time schedule now?
No. They're here.
Who?
George Romero and Tom Savini, too.
Well, where I grew up, there was one drive-in movie near where I grew up, so I really never went to the drive-ins much until I got out here. Pittsburgh. This is Pittsburgh.
Yeah, there's lots of drive-ins here. I think I started at the drive-ins before the movie theaters because it was easier to pack up in the car and go and take this little kid along with you.
Yeah.
And that's where I really first saw Man of a Thousand Faces, at a drive-in. Then followed up in movie theaters. Every movie theater I could find that was showing it,
Well, it's, the product has become sort of disposable product, and really the drive-in might have even been the beginning of that. The drive-ins, I think, were if you wanted to trace what happened to movies to make them more popular or to make them more like more disposable or more like paperbacks, if you will.
Fast food.
It sort of went drive-ins to TV drive-ins and TV probably around the same time, and then now it's gone from that to video cassette. Now it's completely disposable. I mean, I
never thought of that. That's true.
I would never think of walking out on a movie. I mean, if I'd go to a movie and if I'd see the beginning of a movie, I was committed.
Yeah,
I would never think of walking out. Now I bring.
Have you ever? I've never had.
I have with cassettes. I'll bring home 6 cassettes on a weekend. I'll watch. I'll watch one. If I really don't like it, I'll just turn it off and go to the next one.
Because it's so easy.
And I may never watch the end of it, which is something that I used to never do. So the most laughs I ever had at a drive-in was when we went to see Night of the Living Dead.
How come?
We all went out to see it at a drive-in. I remember Carl and Marilyn and I think Russ was along.
But it wasn't the first time you'd seen it.
No, but we all went to a drive-in and had this, brought food and wine and had a ball.
That's a different kind of premiere, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was sort of our own premiere. We had a big premiere at a theater downtown, but then we all went out to the drive-in, so that said something about where our head was.
Like a picnic, yeah.
It was like a picnic.
Yeah.
And we could raise hell and have fun with it. And just the idea that we were playing there,
Yeah. Well, what about some
I
other
remember
ones?
when we had the premiere downtown, it was a premiere that we were sort of responsible for having. It was a benefit, and Walter Reed. It wasn't like the movie had opened, And then it wasn't until after that, when the movie was playing around, that it seemed like it suddenly became a real movie.
Yeah.
And we went to drive-in to see it.
Vampires. Very unnatural ladies. Your blood will freeze as they lead you down the corridors of terror.
ravishers who tempt men's appetites and feed their own. Vampires. Their lips are moist and very, very red. They'll rivet you with terror. Vampires. They trail the aroma of love, the scent of death.
You arouse me more than any woman I've met for...
Kill him. Kill him.
Cross their path and you are a sacrifice to evil.
Who are you? Where the hell do you come from?
Vampires. Very unnatural ladies. They are the dark screams in the blood. The screams you won't be able to hold back when you see Vampires. Adult terror from chemists.
That's funny, talking about drive-ins. One summer in the New Orleans territory, it was so hot at night that they couldn't keep the show running. They had to cut the show after a half an hour to an hour because it was that hot at night that the people could not remain in their cars. They couldn't stay in the cars. They actually had to get out, and they were trying to sit on the hoods, and it was so hot. And so I learned about that extreme. I learned about the extremes of playing films in blizzards in New England, and surprised to see hundreds and hundreds of people going to see a movie at a drive-in in the middle of a snowstorm. While it was snowing, Satan Sadist was playing in New England, and the people actually went to see it. Just incredible.
It's no secret. The drive-in theater has steadily declined in recent years, giving way to shopping malls and condominiums. Where they were once 5,000 strong, there are barely 2,000 remaining nationwide. But the horror and exploitation market lives on, and the films usually destined for a drive-in playdate are now being shown in your living room. The tremendous demand for home video product has produced a natural venue for low-budget productions like Breeders and Psychos in Love. Specifically geared for the home market, genre films can be made quickly and cheaply. Only now you don't have to be in your car to see them. The new drive-in theater and its movies are as close to you as your television set.
I'm a psycho killer.
I don't believe it.
What?
Me too.
Get out of here, really?
Really? I'm not kidding.
Okay, that's Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, part 2. Friday the 13th, part 3. Friday the 13th, part 4. And Friday the 13th, part 5. That's Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and Halloween 3. That's Death Wish 1 and Death Wish 2. That's Dawn of the Dead. That's Night of the Living Dead.
Don't forget Day of the Dead.
Yeah, I was just getting to that. Day of the Day. I mean Day of the Dead. That's Psycho 1 and Psycho 2. Wow. That's Deadly Eyes, Deadly Strangers.
What do you do with the bodies after?
That's I Eat Your Skin. That's I Spit on Your Grave. The Debbie Reynolds workout tape. That's The House of Seven Corpses. The house that Jack built. And the house on Sorority Row. I have got to find another job.
Oh, can I have one of these? Betty. Keith, Diane.
It's interesting that people who know us know that we've been involved in more pictures than just Night of the Living Dead, and the Booby Hatch.
Well, I remember after Night of the Living Dead, and even after the affair, I had this idea, and you and Rudy Ritchie and I were sitting in your office, and we were just telling jokes and drinking coffee, and I said, you know, I had this idea last night about a film. You know, I'd like to do a film about a girl whose sex life is all screwed up because she works as a product tester for a company that makes erotic products.
I
You guys-
love the
yeah,
concept.
you
I
guys-
still do today.
You guys fell on the ground laughing, and we said we have to do this film, but then how do you do it and get an R rating? So,
Well, it takes the whole mentality of what we were doing in terms of industrial films. It seems as though the erotic product industry
Yeah.
might have product testers. Does this
Yeah,
work? Does this work?
one more company needs a sales film.
You don't have to be crazy to work at the Booby Hatch, but it helps. The Booby Hatch is a sexy new movie all about a peculiar X-rated love factory where they make unmentionable toys for adults. The Booby Hatch is a new and exciting experience for married couples. The Booby Hatch is a new and exciting experience for unmarried couples. The Booby Hatch is a comedy.
Maybe he don't like the girls no more. Maybe he like the boys. Men like him in the old country, they wear lipstick and tighter pants. He know my son.
Give me your underthing.
What?
Your underthing.
What on earth? This couldn't be part of the test.
The Booby Hatch is a tender love story.
All you gotta do is let me show you a hot time in a sack.
Who is this?
I never liked the idea of my brother working in a dirty, despicable sex shop. It ain't civilized.
Oh my God, oh my God.
The Booby Hatch is a crazy, mad, insane, groovy, loony, zany, wild, fantastic, smashing dynamite, hilarious, and uncouth look at how people get together for a little messing around in the old testing lab. Don't miss the Booby Hatch for the looniest, sexiest time of your life.
Just when I thought I've seen it all.
One of the most interesting movies, and for me, one of the hardest physically, was Return of the Living Dead. I played a real different part, and my name was Trash, and I had these red-pink hair, and I've never been so cold in my life. My wardrobe consisted pretty much of leg warmers and being buried in mud or in the rain and wearing latex all over my face as a zombie. But one thing I'll never be is a zombie. I would rather be impaled on antlers than play a zombie again with that latex on my face. It drove me nuts.
Man of a Thousand Faces. I remember sitting in a theater, I think I was 12, and it was a different kind of movie. It was the first movie, I think, where it was a movie about making movies. And in that it was about making movies, you know, it was Lon Chaney, James Cagney playing Lon Chaney. And it's not enough to say that I was impressed or that it affected me and it made me think of makeup. I went nuts. I just absolutely went nuts. I couldn't believe that a guy, it was the first time I saw how. See, before that, the monsters were real, okay? I saw that movie and, oh, well, somebody puts makeup on their faces and becomes those monsters. And this guy was not just a makeup artist, he was an actor, and he was a physical guy, he did his own stunts and everything. So I went mad. I started putting a little makeup kit together from stuff out of my mother's purse. And crude, of course, in those days, it was a compact of powder and lipstick, and that's all I had. And so I remember quickly trying to duplicate Lon Chaney, being as much him as possible by getting a box and putting the stuff in it and a tattered shirt and a headband, because in the movie, one of the first things he did was become a pirate. So I went to my aunt's house, and I said, hey, watch this. And I took out this tattered shirt and put it on and this bandana and made my face brown, and I put my hands on my hips like this, and it was like, what are you doing? You know, why are you doing this? You know, yeah. And to me it was like, I'm Lon Chaney, you know, or I'm a pirate, or I can be somebody different, okay? And I went in the Army, had a makeup kit. Then I came back from the Army, and I was stationed in North Carolina, and I met this guy in a bar named Forrest Carpenter. He was doing a Bob Clark film called Death Dream, okay? It was right after they did Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, which he said was our poor man's version of Night of the Living Dead. He actually said that to me. Okay? I met this guy, and I had a portfolio in my car. I did a high school lecture that day, and I showed him it, and he said, fine, we could use you. And 3 days later, they offered me the job. I went to Florida and did Death Dream. And a month after that, we went to Canada and did Deranged, which was the true story of one of the stories about Ed Gein, the guy that Psycho was based on, and you know, the crazy killer that dug up his mother and all that stuff. Okay, I think that we worked on Midnight at night, trying to do you know, Night Riders in the daytime, and maybe on days off or something, working on Jack Russo's Midnight at night, at midnight.
Maybe we'll drag them out in the woods one at a time. Question them separately.
Good idea.
What'd you do with my daughter?
Well, she might be right in front of you.
There's been a half a dozen people found dead around here, just in the past couple of years since I came here to preach. Some look like accidents, some obviously murdered.
It's all right. Stay out of here. Take your boy along. Get the road. Watch it. All right. I'm looking on you, black boy.
Which one of you owns this van? I do. Okay, take your six-pack, get in the van, get out of town, now.
You heard the man. Come on, let's go. Let's go. We don't need your kind around here.
Don't need you.
Hey.
Where's your white trash? Let's go.
They should have known better when they came into town. Every sign pointed to what could happen there. Every indication told them to leave now. The wise guys in the bar, the preacher's warning, and the sheriff who made hate a way of life. Go, get out of town. We don't want your kind here. But they stayed. They stayed, and it became too late to leave. Too late as the clock approached midnight. Midnight. Now the book from the co-author of Night of the Living Dead comes to life on the screen. Don't miss John Russo's Midnight.
Hey, I mean, praying's for church, huh? Come on.
I haven't seen you in church lately.
Well, there's not much sense in my going to church.
Drive-in movies drive me crazy. I love drive-in movies.
Now, you take part in the greatest double fright show of them all. Dracula, Prince of Darkness, and The Plague of the Zombies at a theater near you. And we're giving away free Dracula fangs to every boy and zombie eyes to every girl who enters the theater. Boys, fight back, 'cause here comes Dracula back from the dead. Girls, defend yourself against the zombies that stay dead. But come back anyway. Both features brand new in vivid color. Dracula, Prince of Darkness, and The Plague of the Zombies. With Dracula fangs for every fellow, zombie eyes for every girl. Both free as you enter the theater. Beware the glare of her stare. She's the Queen of Blood. In time yet to come, in galaxies yet unknown, daring astronauts of science find the Queen of Blood.
She's gorged herself of fresh blood. She's a monster.
Starring John Saxon, Basil Rathbone, Judy Meredith, Dennis Hopper, and Florence Marley. She turns the Milky Way into a galaxy of gore. Queen of Blood, in color, and Bloodbath. Beautiful models succumb to an artist at murder. Two horror-happy thrillers, Bloodbath and Queen of Blood, in color.
Now, blood eaters are out there. They are coming, hunting, searching out fresh prey. Without feeling, without mercy, they track their victims down. Nothing will prepare you for the horror of these butchers of the damned. Nothing will protect you from the terror of the blood eaters. See Blood Eaters, rated R.
When the show is over, please remember to place the speaker back on its stand. If the speaker is accidentally broken, please let someone at the refreshment stand know about it. We appreciate your coming out to the drive-in tonight.
In putting that kind of effort together, it's not uncommon to have more than one role.
Like getting set on fire?
Like getting set on fire and writing and half producing and half directing and including acting. I think it's kind of interesting, the part that you ended up with.
Well, that was by default. Everybody went home and it was 4 o'clock in the morning and we didn't have anybody to be the zombie that had to break in through the kitchen. So I said, oh, let them all go home, I'll do it. So here I am stringing cables and changing magazines, and I've got dermal wax on my face and scars and blood coming out of my forehead. And so we shot the scene where I get the tire iron through the head, and then Dwayne drags me outside and sets me on fire. That time he set a dummy on fire. But later I said, you know, we can't be throwing all these Molotov cocktails all over the place, and we never see a ghoul set on
Actually
fire.
catch on fire, yeah.
And we said, well, how are we going to do that? We can't afford an asbestos suit or anything. I said, what the hell, I'll do it.
Let's get Jack, he'll do it.
Yeah, I'll do it. He's dumb. Look at him, he was stupid enough to do all this other stuff.
The second picture we made was our title was There's Always Vanilla, and then it was retitled The Affair. And that just never got a good distribution. It opened in a few theaters and never caught on. It was a small distributor who didn't have the clout or the wherewithal to circulate the film with any success.
I've decided that I'm going to remain true to you. You know, the last thing in the world I wanted right then happened. I mean, all of a sudden, boom, there she was, and I couldn't turn around and walk away from it.
I'm sorry. You all right? Are you all right? Shit.
Say, girl, you know you almost killed me.
I'm sorry. I missed the train.
Well, what's more important, catching the train or a human life? My life.
Catching the train.
I don't know that the film would ever have been a big success on any level, but this guy just literally opened it in a few theaters and then folded his hand. I mean, he never even tried.
The distant stars, the lonely earth, the 21st century, and lurking beyond the strange immensity of conquered space, exploding in unspeakable horror, the green slide. The civilized world at war with alien forms whose touch means instant, horrible death. Robert Horton, Luciana Paluzzi, Richard Jaco. A battle in space against faceless beings. A cosmic nightmare that sends you into the incredible, berserk world of the green slime.
What did they want with a man in the House of Psychotic Women? What do they do to a man in the House of Psychotic Women? What else?
Stop it! Stop it!
House of Psychotic Women from Independent International. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
Well, you know, the best fun about a drive-in movie is coming in and having 6 people in the trunk. Now, what you have to do is you have to wait till the movie starts, you pull in, you put your speaker on, you get your popcorn, and then when it gets really dark, you open up the trunk and you let all the people out, and then they go and they sit in the back seat. And then pretty much you can get away with this. I've only been caught a couple of times. When the screen blackens out, everybody honks their horns. I mean, you can't do that in actual theater, right? You can't honk your horns or scream and yell. I mean, people are very quiet and go up and tell the projectionist. But in drive-in movies, you could honk, you could blast away, and at the end, you would want to be the first one out because there'd be a line of cars around the block to try to get out. The kids today have not experienced anything like this until you've actually gone to a drive-in movie. I mean, I hope they keep 2 or 3 around for nostalgia's sake.
The audience for that kind of material, I think the audience has always been there for the fantastic, I think always. Since we first built a campfire and wondered what lightning was, and we were, you know, primitive man was sitting around trying
that's
to...
fantastic.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that's always been there. And there is an audience that craves and hungers for fantasy. And it's, I think, a much larger audience than Hollywood or the mainstream industry believes it to be. They've found in recent years that they can appeal to that audience and in the process make $200 or $300 million. But they think that you have to do it with by spending $40 or $50 million at Industrial Light and Magic, or at, you know, by throwing it back. There is something to be said about the idiom. In other words, we've come to that Spielberg touch, and that beautiful looking special effects, visual effects, have become sort of idiomatic, and people do expect it. But I don't think that's essential. If I was going to do the recipe, if there was a recipe, I wouldn't necessarily include that stuff. I think it's just some kind of visceral. You got to have a good story, and you have to tell it in a way that makes it good, makes it a good experience viscerally.
And what does the future hold for all of this? I don't know, but I know this. There are fans of horror movies, there are fans of exploitation films, there are drive-in shows on cable and on local television channels, people making drive-in style movies for home cassette only. I think that the type of picture will continue. Where it will be shown is anybody's guess. But the drive-in name, the drive-in phrase, drive-in style movie will never die. It will be something that will go on into the future. And maybe years from now there'll be fans of drive-in movies and they won't know why they're called drive-in movies.
The drive-in theater, will any survive? Or will the tradition of outdoor movie-going slowly be erased by the high value of land and the convenience of home video? If you happen to live near a drive-in, consider yourself fortunate. Millions no longer have the option of going. The drive-in theater offers an exciting ambience that's just impossible to recreate. We hope that in viewing this tape, you might have imagined a whiff of those soggy hamburgers or deliciously greasy egg rolls. You know something? One of those things sounds pretty good about now. I'll see you at the drive-in. Thanks for joining us, and please drive home carefully.